My name is Glyn from MrGlyn's Pickups, and today I'm going to have a chat with Stephan Gilberg from Big Noise Amplification in Nelson. Now, he does a huge range of pedals, he makes valve amplifiers. I've never met him, I've never spoken to him before. I really want to find out what this guy's all about. So Stephan, very pleased to meet you. We haven't actually met in person, have we?
No, we haven't. Pleased to meet you.
Yeah, so how long have you been making amps and pedals, and how did you start?
I started quite a long time ago, way back in time when I lived in Germany, because I'm originally an immigrant. I immigrated to New Zealand in 1996.
Okay.
And I worked in the early 90s in a music shop in Germany called the Guitar Garage. So I worked for a while there, and played in a band as well. And I always had quite a desire to make things and stuff. So that really pulls quite a bit through my whole life, I'd say, with things, not just with music instruments. But so I worked in the early 90s in a music shop in Germany, which was a bit of a custom shop, and we were making guitars in a small series and modifying things, and also just selling stuff and gear. That was before the internet. There was a time before the internet. So it was really the early stages when custom guitars and stuff like that probably started a little bit. And then I immigrated to New Zealand, and I just continued doing it as a hobby, and I played in bands and built my own gear and got more and more engrossed with it. And at some point, apart from making guitars, I got the idea of making stompbox effects and then also guitar amps, because I quite liked the mucking around things and also making things, and also the idea of having my own guitar, playing through my own stompboxes, through my own amps. And actually I found I really like the sound, and I can tweak it and I can repair it and customize it the way I like. So that was really is quite a buzz.
Yeah.
And then of course the internet came along, which was really a fantastic resource to learn more and to also exchange with people from all over the world. Because of course, I'm sure you will do that a lot as well with your pickup winding and guitar making in general, that there's a lot that you're a lot in interest groups and forums and stuff, and learn a lot from others and exchange and see things and have exchange with people. So that was really quite a great resource then.
So do you think that early time when you had to figure stuff out for yourself, I mean, it was like that with me, because I started pre-internet.
Yeah.
And I think that time was actually really trying to figure it out.
Yeah.
I think that was really quite valuable.
It was totally. And of course, as useful as the internet is as a resource, there's also a lot of downside to it at the same time too, because of course there's, in my opinion, a lot of information out there which is just half cooked or outright bollocks. And then there's a lot of good resources, and you really have to find out and be quite witty about it yourself to tell what you find useful and what you find good and stuff. And also, of course, the challenge to work out stuff by yourself, but also through networking directly with people, because that happened quite a bit as well, that we were networking with other musicians and other little manufacturers and other shops and local musician initiatives back in Germany, you know. That has, of course, that kind of personal contact has faded probably a little bit more away through everything is going over social media and stuff like that. It's a little sad at some point as well, and it definitely has also downsides. So definitely, yes, the early period, I find it very valuable, and also you appreciate stuff definitely a lot more, you know. I think sometimes with the internet, it seems a little bit like a fast food culture in a way as well. You know, there's so much out there that it's often overwhelming.
So how do you learn this stuff?
My background is a lot from woodwork. So I've done a lot of woodwork back in Germany. That was also really the start of when I was playing guitar, wanting to make my own guitar, getting in touch with a music shop. And again, there was a lot of personal connection, and then really starting to work part-time first in the music shop and learning a lot through that and applying the woodworking skills in that way. And then also, of course, figuring out the electronic side and through books and stuff in the early days. And it's really the drive to learn and understand and to tweak and to bend it in a way that I find it really matches what I like, and also what probably other people who come to me and say, oh, I like this, but I wanted it with a little bit more gain or a little bit more mid boost or whatever when it's about a stompbox or so, to tweak things and understand it. And a lot of it I learned really then through books and later on through the internet as well, of course, because there's so much resources out there to learn about electronics, for example.
So are valve amps more your passion, or stomp boxes, or both?
I would say probably both. And the valve amps really are probably built more for myself, because I put a lot of work in it and a lot of time, and the money that I really would have to charge to sell an amp is high. So someone has to be really keen. And there's a legal element to it too, because to sell something that's powered by mains power, you need to be a certified electrician, which I'm not. So I'm not really officially selling the tube amps. Sometimes a friend of mine manages to twist one out of my arm or something like that, but it really is more that I build stuff myself. And I'm completely confident that it's safe, because I know all about fusing and earthing it properly and all the rest of it. But of course, building stomp boxes, which are powered by 9 volt and stuff like that, that's low voltage stuff, and you can't kill yourself with that.
Yeah, no, exactly. Now, I noticed looking at the stuff you sent me, you make a lot of stomp boxes. I mean, yes. those pictures that I looked at on Facebook, I counted 20.
Yeah.
And I'm guessing there's more than that.
There's more than that, yes. It's a habit. So
designing is the habit more than making, or both?
Well, really, the story is that basically every stomp box that I make in the first place because curiosity kills the cat, and I love doing it myself, and I build them for myself. So that's also the standard that I'm building them to, so that I'm happy with it, and that's for me personally a very high standard. And then if someone says, cool, how can I twist it out of your hand, then, well, there's some negotiation and stuff like that, or I tell them the price and really quite simply what it takes to make. And then I build the same thing for myself again until someone else comes around and tells me, can I have that? Or for example, well, if I already have used it, then I say, look, I'll make you a brand new one. It will just take me 2.5 weeks and stuff like that. And then I'll make a new one. So basically, all the things that I make are in the first place my own pleasure and passion. And yes, in my room, I have quite a few stomp boxes sitting here, probably easily over 100.
Yeah, you can't have too many. It's like guitars.
You can't have too many. That's the attitude.
Yeah.
No.
And once you actually have that bug, then you're stuffed, aren't you? Really, that guitar acquisition syndrome thing where you can't cure it. You can just relieve symptoms by buying more, and it's temporary. That is, and you need to buy more again. But it's harmless.
It's good fun, exactly. Yeah. So it's a very good and creative addiction. Really, for me, it's also part of the challenge is also to always get a little bit better and to keep my brain engaged and really work new things, because I really don't make many of the same stomp boxes. I probably would if someone pays me, because it would be probably relatively efficient. But really, so many of the ones that I built are unique or tweaks and always pushed a bit further and always a bit different,
But with your circuit boards, that you make, which are, I must say, rather beautiful, you'll make one of those for a one-off?
Basically, yes. So I'll make them for a one-off, and then again, if someone comes around, then I'll build another one.
Wow.
So basically, I design them myself, and I don't know if anyone else will buy it. Hopefully they will, yes, because I think I make pretty hot stuff. And I think one of the biggest problems that we face, and you probably as well, is that people don't quite see that because we need more exposure or people need to know more about it, and then they would understand that your pickups are really a nice one of a Fender Strat pickup, not just a Fender Strat pickup or something like that, that there's a special taste to it and a quality to it and something desirable. So the more people see it, and good on you for making, for example, videos like this, because I guess it helps to bring the message out there.
Well, that's the idea of just meeting people, because I think if you see an online presence, well, there's always suspicion, and who's this guy? Are they just rebranding
totally
Chinese-made stuff or whatever? So I rather like having a chat with other people anyway.
Yeah, no, that's totally true, and I think that's a little bit the story. And of course, bigger companies have the power to make really fancy YouTube demos, like with Pete Thorne and Sean Tubbs and all those good people, and they look very slick and they demonstrate a pedal very good. I don't even have the time to make such good demos and the gear, and I can't even present it as well as they do. So it's a steep curve to come against that, Yeah.
Yeah. How do you get beyond that point where it's just you and your soldering iron, where really you could do with somebody else full time doing all the marketing and organize that, and
If you have someone who does it for free, send them around to me. Just joking. That's just not happening, So really, my operation is really a very small one-person operation, and I appreciate that too. I value that because it really means I make a pedal, I design it, and I tweak it, and I test it, and I play guitar, and I know what it does, and then when I send it to someone else, I know what I've sent them. And if they for some reason are not happy with it or so, then I can say something about it and fix it, or suggest something different, tweak it, and that type of thing.
Yeah, I always use test pilots, as I call them, for pickups. So I'll have what I think, and then I'll put it in the hands of someone who's an expert in that sort of field,
Sure.
They don't have you. And I've tried it when there's a few more people, and you can never get consensus. But when there's two people, I figure if there's two of us and two of us agree, then we're on to something good.
Yeah.
Very hard to introduce other people, but that's what I do, and I think it's mainly just to alleviate self-doubt. So designing a pedal, how do you go about designing? Where'd you start?
I often think it's a bit like cooking. Okay, so it's basically designing a pedal like an overdrive or boost or delay. It's really like using ingredients like building blocks, and like a recipe. When you make a lasagna, there's a certain type of recipe for it, how you put it together. But of course, there's a lot of variants, and you can give it your own flavor, and you can put your own sauce on it. So on one hand, I'm definitely not inventing the wheel again. Like, you probably don't do that with your pickups. You make a nice Fender Strat pickup, but it's not just a clone. It's you make it the way you think it's best, and you give it different magnets and stuff like that, all that stuff. So you basically put it together like a recipe, like you cook your own version of it. And that's how the Stonebox creation works, in my opinion, a bit. So there's certain building blocks that have been used and are used, and they're put together in new ways, and they make a different flavor, and they make quite a unique dish then, which is still coming from lasagna, for example, or something like that. But it has a really nice taste, and then hopefully the people come to your restaurant because you're making the best lasagna in town.
Yeah, right.
Or at least, what I definitely also think, I can't please everyone, and I'm not trying that, But I try my best to say what it does or what it can do, I think, and also how to bring it across. And really, that's how all those Stonebox makers pretty much operate, So if you look at it, there's not that many new inventions around, but at the same time, what they bring out is still a valid product most of the time, where they created their own flavor and their own distinct version of it, and it really gives it a distinct sound that you like, or maybe not like. So you can choose, you can find out if it's right for you, I guess.
Yeah, okay. And I always have to pay quite a bit of attention to make. I try and make sure that what I make is right for that person, because, and then you come down to the problem of language. How do you describe a sound?
Of course, in the sound in your head. And of course, there's all those buzzwords, nice and creamy sound, or organic sound, and all the rest of it, you know. And then, of course, the person takes it home to try it out with their own gear and stuff, and it's a different experience, probably, you know. So it's really great. And of course, I have test pilots as well. It's a really good name, Test Pilot. So I have a few friends whose opinion I value a lot, and then there's a few local musicians here, and that's always great when I have someone local here. Also, when they have a different taste. For example, I have just given a heavy metal pedal to a guy, and it will be the great test person for that. Because as much as it's sometimes fun to shred around on some heavy pedal, I'm personally not such a heavy metal person. I'm more into traditional rock and blues type of thing is my playing, you know. So I'm really keen to get his opinion once he has given it a good spin, you know. And then, of course, hopefully he falls in love with it. That's the story. Or at least he can give me hints. I need more punch or whatever, or more gain, and then I can tweak it and then can give it again to him, you know? Yeah, absolutely. So what sound do you have in your head, or how do you describe it? And how do you find it out? I often think it's really just the story of you got to play it loud, and you got to play it with your gear in a way, you know? That, of course, is a hard one to bridge. You know, I guess that will be a little bit when you make a pickup for someone, you know, how would I describe what pickup would be the right one for me to make. And I volunteer as a test pilot if you want to send me something down.
Well,
I might send you a pedal.
I can also test pedals. Yeah. Okay. We'll have a chat about that later.
Sure.
I do have a bit of a pedal habit.
Yeah.
I think I probably have a vintage amplifier habit if I have more money.
Okay. I get you hooked on pedals, you get me hooked on pickups.
Well, at least with pedals, you can just quickly plug them in and try them.
Yes, of course. A pickup to put in the guitar takes a little bit longer to mount in and out, which also makes the comparison and sound a little bit longer, because there's always this time gap in between, of course, yes.
Yeah. Well, I've got a test guitar that I've routed the pickup cavities right through the back.
Yeah, okay, so you can stick them quickly.
Attach them to a little thing and just slot them in and go, and they're attached with crocodile clips.
Yeah.
So I can do a pickup swap in 20 seconds.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, so you can remember that sound, because that's the hard thing, isn't it? It's trusting your memory of the sound. Yeah. So you do. I see lots of overdrives and fuzzes.
Yeah.
You like modulation stuff as well?
I do modulation stuff, yes. Personally, I'm quite a modulation junkie. I really like univibes and tremolos, delays, phasers, so reverb, yep. So I do really quite a variety, but overdrives and fuzzes are, of course, the bread and butter stuff, because overdrives probably are the most commonly used pedal for most genres somehow. Either heavy or light and stuff. And there's so many flavors of them around, you know. Sometimes people think, oh, there's so many overdrives, which one shall I choose? It's just the beauty of that we can have such a range of things. And it's also a little bit because there's so many musicians out there that all have their own desire and their own sound in their head. So that's why, of course, there's so much gear around and so many guitars and so many different pickups, you know, because we all love to hunt for that special sound and shape it and shape the whole chain. From the guitar through the stomp boxes or whatever used to the amp to the speaker. Such an amazing chain of things. I find it often so fascinating to think about that. You just plug a little steel string and it makes in the pickup an electric current which goes through the cable into the stomp box, which gets twisted around, which goes into the amp, which gets amplified a heck of a lot, goes out to the speaker, goes into a little coil, and then makes the speaker vibrate, and then we hear it in our head. I think it's a fascinating chain.
Yeah.
In a way, it's highly inefficient on one hand, but it's just so beautiful and so complex. And because it's so complex, that's also why there's so much gear around, and also so many different flavors and so many different things that we hear. Like you hear stuff, of course, different, or you want different things than I want, stuff like that. I think it's beautiful.
That is such an engineer's viewpoint.
Yeah.
I remember having a real epiphany about pickups at an AC/DC gig, and thinking of the wire. I mean, the wire in humbuckers. I mean, he's probably got about, let's say, Angus's humbuckers. He's probably got a 2.5 kilometers worth length of wire. It's so thin, and 2.5 k's worth of wire will fit inside the humbucker, and it produces such a tiny amount of electricity.
Yeah. Yes.
And then you amplify that enough times, and you've got this stadium rock thing. And
amazing.
Going, gosh, that's this powerful noise. It's just this teeny. I find that fascinating.
It's incredible, eh?
Really cool stuff.
Yeah.
And another thing I think with pedals is, I mean, I've got 10 pedals on my board, but I doubt there's anyone with the same combination of pedals that I've got.
Yeah, that's beautiful too. They can, of course, throw stuff around, and with pedals, of course, it's really nice to change the order, put a different one in, and stuff like that. Totally love that. I find that always quite amazing. And also, some people call pedals, for example, just talent boosters. And I personally think the whole chain that we were just talking about, is full of beautiful variables that are inspiring. They can also be confusing, possibly, but really, I don't think it's about this confusion. It's about having fun with it, and that's inspiring. And I find that a good thing. When you find a combination, whatever is in the combination, whatever guitar, pickup, or stompbox, or amp it is, and it makes you feel good, and it gives you that hint of sound where you think, yes, that's the sound that I love, type of thing. That's great, So I don't need to put down any element of that as a talent booster, That's bollocks. I mean, Jimi Hendrix was one of the first people who really started using effects, because they actually became, from the history, they became later into it than amps, for example. Of course, guitar amps were earlier developed, and then later on the effects came. And of course, he was just so open to using it. Who would have said that Jimi Hendrix needed a talent booster? Of course, he didn't need a talent booster, but man, did he inspiring stuff with it. And was he inspired by it? And did he get ideas from it? And that's what it's about. Yeah. And someone with that open mind, he would use anything at their disposal to just have fun and make good music. That's what it's about. Yeah. Not to be somehow arrogant about something, And music that I don't like death metal is really, for example, not my thing. Good on you. When people like doing that, and when they have their gear to do that, and whatever they need for it, that's great. If it inspires them and spins their wheels, that's great, or stuff like that, So I think that's the point of having fun and being creative with it.
Yeah. It's all, death metal's funny. I'm working on a pickup for those guys. Okay. And like you, it's not quite my world. So I've got another guy who's helped me out heaps, Raj at Rage Studios. But what I find fascinating is I can sit in his studio and he'll isolate the guitar track. Yeah. And now I get it.
Yeah, it's great.
Because with all the other stuff, I think they're very hard hearing past the vocals for me. And then the drums so dominant and so busy, and all the double kick and stuff. But just hearing the guitar track, and now it's like, yeah, I really get it. But I certainly need help with making gear for it.
Yeah, sure.
So do you get people contacting you saying, could you make me a whatever, Aotearoa?
Yes, yes, I do get that. And it would be nice if it's a little bit more, because, of course, again, I love making things, and it helps me to finance the hobby. And I really don't make a lot of money out of it, realistically. But I love doing it, and I dare say I have the workshop here, I have the skills to do it my way, and I hope I can make as many people happy as possible, type of thing. So it's great if someone comes around and says, can you make me that or something? Or can you, for example, make me that but tweak it a bit more? That's because that's also really beautiful when I can make things that are not available. And where I tweak something existing, or where I combine something and it can become something new that just fits for the customer. Because, of course, sometimes I have people telling me, or can you just make me a red distortion or a tube screamer? Sure thing, I can do that. And at the same time, why doesn't the person just buy a red? I carefully usually suggest then, for example, well, I'll make you a red and we can put a few extra options in there, because that will make you probably more happy if you're open to trying that out, because you'll get the original sound of it, but there may be 2 or 3 more switches and another dial where you can dial more bass in or a little bit less. And you have a pedal which has like 3 or 4 times the potential.
Yeah.
And also you can go home with it and just play it, plug it in your setup and play with the band, and suddenly you have the full band sound, and it actually is a different feel and a different mix. And then you think, oh, I want a little bit more bass. Or conversely, it's a little bit too much bass. Well, you just dial that knob that I put your extra in there, and you can tweak it, and suddenly you have it, rather than being slightly unhappy with it. So that type of thing.
Yeah, the rat, a fantastic example of that.
Yeah.
I used to have a guitar shop in the UK, and we sold rats, and it was so hard selling them, I thought, because you play them quietly in the shop, and you go, what's the fuss about? And then I took one to a rehearsal room, played it on my own loud, thought, oh, yeah, a bit better loud, but as soon as there was a drummer playing, it was fantastic. It just found its place.
Absolutely.
And so, yeah, so having something you can adjust for those situations.
Adjust a bit more and tweak a bit more, because everyone will hear a red slightly different, you know. And as you're just saying, in some situation you might not like it, or one person might not like it, but actually once they have the opportunity to just tweak it a little bit more, or have an extra switch to change the frequency response in there, you know, type of, and they suddenly might find, oh, this is great. Or they can use it for more songs by just flicking a switch, you know, and then you have it for another song where it probably needs to be a bit more quieter or something like that, not quite as aggressive, for example, type of thing. So there's lots of options like that, and I really like that aspect, you know, because of course I'm not necessarily so much into just making copies of pedals. I really don't make copies as such anyway, because I mean my pedals look already different. I don't try to copy a red and make it look the same. That's really cloning. I already start with making my own circuit board and then put a few extra options in there, and then the customer can have it customized. Yes, that's the story. So my red version, I have actually 2 red versions, one with 4 knobs and an extra clipping switch, and one with 6 knobs. So the circuit becomes a quite whole new monster, and it covers pretty much the whole range of all the red versions that have been produced, plus extra. So if someone is not afraid of having 2 or 3 extra knobs, then they have a lot more potential at their fingers. Sometimes people are a little bit worried about that, having too many knobs on it, you know, they want it simple, like volume, tone, gain. Well, I understand that as well, but at the same time they also have to be aware that they might be a little bit more limited. And I often think, well, and try to bring that across, don't be afraid of it. Just listen to what you hear. When it's good, it's good. So you don't need to worry about what's the label saying, you know. If you just dial it a little bit more and it's great, it's good. Or if you like to take it a bit down, that's great. Trust your ears. I think that's a great thing. And that's sometimes a little bit lost, because of course, coming back to the internet with all those reviews and gear page and demos, you know, and we get bombarded with fantastic reviews from pedals. You sit at the screen or in the music shop and you see pedal which has been reviewed and shown off beautifully, you know. So there's this thing, oh, this must be the greatest thing ever. And you take it back home and you might be slightly disappointed because it's just not quite your thing, you know. So I think because people not necessarily trust their ears so much, that gets lost a little bit. And that's also then why bigger names are the ones to go for, you know, like bigger established brands. And it's a little bit the struggle that I have as a small maker, you know, of course, because who knows me? Handful of people. Few people, and of course those people will think, oh yeah, what is he doing? He's just sitting in his workshop and making little things. Can this be any good? While I see those demos from slightly bigger names, you know, type of thing. Well, it's actually made with the same ingredients or the same cooking, you know. It's just put together in a different order, in a different recipe, but it's made by hand. That's also the other thing which I find quite amazing, that sometimes people want something handmade, but at the same time they don't trust people so much that make handmade because they are not so well known. And sometimes I get that, sometimes not from everyone, I'm not saying that, but sometimes I feel it's a little bit of an attitude.
Yeah, and I think, I had this guy who I've sold some pickups to down in Christchurch, and we had the email exchange, and he said when I was younger I used to read Guitarist magazine, and I used to see all the rock stars, and they would go to an engineer guy and they'd make stuff for them, and we were talking about pickups, and he's going, and this is what's happening now. This is like my dream when I was a kid. He gets to talk to the person who makes the stuff. And I thought, actually, it's the same for me.
Yeah.
Because, and I get to talk to these people who go out and play, and I love my gear being gigged or hearing recordings, and it's just fantastic.
Yeah. No, I totally agree. Love that too. When people get a buzz out of what I make for them and use it and play back home or play live or something like that, that's really quite cool.
Yeah. It's like you almost get to be, you're part of that fantastic set.
Yeah, feels good, makes you proud, and what's the little part of that, that's really cool.
Yeah. Hey, so how do you name a pedal?
How I name a pedal?
Yes.
All right, it's just usually some spontaneous coming to my mind that somehow fits to the theme, For example, just today I made a harmonic tremolo, so it's a modulation effect which is quite swirly, and I called it Vertigo because it just makes me swirly in my head when I play it, that type of thing, or I made an overdrive which has quite a nice grunt, and I called that Mad Dog because it has quite a bite, So it's a little bit what I hear and what I associate with it, and I just give it a name. Just usually, it's often pretty much the first thing that comes to my mind when I play it. When I play it on the testing rig, before I have boxed it up. So when I've played it a little bit and just tested it and think, oh, this is great. I've come to the point where the circuit is the recipe that I like. Then comes the process where I make the label and the box and make it look all pretty. And by that time I have some kind of thought of a name. It's usually quite spontaneous and not very planned, it just bubbles up typically.
Right. Oh, well done. Well done. I agonize over it. Really hard. But yeah. And the labels, so the designs and stuff. The
labels. Yeah, well, I use a graphics program to do that. And let's just grab one.
Because that's a big deal these days with pedals, isn't it?
Well, yeah, I mean, they should look pretty, I guess, and durable. So my pedals have an acrylic faceplate, which makes them quite durable. For example, rather than spray paint, which really scratches easily over time and gets a bit grubby, so it has an acrylic faceplate plate, and under there is a laser printed label, which I design on the computer. And actually, for people who do custom orders, they can tell them. I had the other day, for example, someone who wanted an Aotearoa pedal. Funny that you talked about it, and he's a big Bob Marley and reggae fan. So he wanted to have a Bob Marley and the reggae colors, green, yellow, red on there, So I made a pedal for him with that, and he also chose the name for him. So it's quite personalized. So I do that as well. Why wouldn't I? If someone custom orders something, then of course there's a little wait time till it's finished, till it's made, but I can make a custom graphic for it as well in a way.
Oh. So it's not just like a Boss pedal, which is a yellow one or an orange one. It's
no.
I could have a picture of my dog.
You can have a picture of your dog on there if you want to. So basically what it needs is just a reasonably sized graphic file. It can be a photo. It can be just a graphic. And of course, the one thing that you need to allow is just the space for the knobs, so you can't have the photo all over the pedal in a way. So it just needs to fit on there reasonably well. I usually give some advice and help with it, what will fit on there. If you have a pedal which has lots of knobs, you know, type of thing, then there's not so much room, but still a little bit of room, you know. Because, for example, this one here is pretty cool. Goldilocks, you know, so there's a bit more room on there. You know, so you can have your custom graphics on there, but then of course it's a custom order and needs a little bit of time until it's finished, which is fine. And that's great too, making someone with a unique pedal, you know, where of course the circuit is or possibly tweak the circuit, you know, the person can also tell me, I want a tube screamer, but without the mid hump or with more bass or stuff like that, then it just needs a few changes in the circuitry. And I want that label on there. Well, then he has this very unique overdrive or blues breaker style pedal or something like that.
Yeah.
Or Timmy clone or something like that. Well, yeah, even a tweaked one. Yeah.
And you always manage to fit them in that sized box?
I do personally, because again, most of the pedals that I do are in the first place for me personally. And then I offer, well, basically I tell anyone who wants to hear this, look, here's a pedal that you can buy, you know, and then of course they can decide. So the sizes that I like to do is this size, which is a 125B size, that's how it's called. And the other size is a lot bigger, is a 1590 XX size. This is 2 univibes in one unit.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, cool, isn't it?
Yeah.
And it has a mixed control, so I can blend between the 2 univibes, and I can actually also blend between clean and univibe. And it has an expression pedal input. So while I'm playing, I can go with the pedal, with the expression pedal into the univibe and out. That's really trippy. Very cool. And of course, the 2 univibes are different from each other, so they both have a different flavor of sound. So this is a really quite elaborate box, quite trippy, really.
Yeah. Yeah, cool.
Love
it. Yeah, because pedalboard real estate is valuable.
It is valuable, yes, but at a certain time, at some point, of course, you need some size, especially when they're complex circuits. This is 2 Mutron Phasers. The Mutron Phasers are very rare, the originals. They probably pay for an original Mutron Phaser something like $800 upwards, and that's beaten up from the 90s or something like that. So these are 2 circuits of that in one piece, again with a mix control, which can be switched individually or as an overall. So this offers a heck of a lot of versions, and it's quite busy on the inside. There's no way I would get that into a smaller box, but it also offers an amazing pedal. And of course, by the way, the original Mutron Phaser, when pedals started out and pedal real estate was not so much a topic, is about as big as a suitcase, right, or relatively big.
So what sort of sound are they? I've never heard of them. What sort of sound are they?
Very trippy and phasing in. For example, to give you an idea, David Gilmour in the early Pink Floyd recordings used Mutron Phaser and things like that. So very trippy, you know, and swirly.
So you wouldn't have it on all the time. You wouldn't do that the phase 90 sort of thing.
Yes, and at the same time, because I have a mixer on it, which blends in clean signal, I can take the intensity down so that you just have a little bit of that trippiness on top of your clean sound. So personally, again, making things that are unique and customizable, I have one on my normal playing board and when I play in my band, and I typically have that on all the time on a very light setting, and then sometimes I kick it in full on because, as you say, it can be easily overused. Completely right. But when it's just a little bit on, that's great. My personal liking of pedals is with things like modulation and reverb and delay. I like them, that they're not overpowering in my sound. That's me personal. So that you think, oh, that's great, it's a beautiful sound, but I can't quite pinpoint it, what it makes. And when I switch the pedals off, then there's something completely missing. And those dimensions go lost. but it's not so full on that there's a lot of delay and so much phaser that I keel over backwards, you know. Sometimes it's quite nice to kick them in that much, but most of the time I like to have a fairly nice sound that's not overloaded.
Yeah.
I from me, who has about 100 pedals in the room here. So it's about how you use them, you know. That's of course a personal thing. But even though I make pedals and quite funky and crazy pedals as well, quite elaborate pedals, I'm not someone who uses them to the point where it's just overloading the sound, or where I just play one note and it's just lots of fluffy stuff happening, you know. It's my philosophy, but again, it's a bit like recipe and cooking, you know. Everyone has their own unique flavor, what they want to do. Some people, of course, would be, and that's fine too, being quite a bit into very trippy sounds all the time, or stoner rock, where you have always your fuzz on full on blast and it's quite heavy all the time. Fine, whatever spins your wheels.
Yes, yeah, I like that hint of phase with overdrive a lot of the time, but every now and again I want to hear the Spaceship Land. You know, get stupid over the top, which is just quite a nice effect every now and again.
Of course.
Yeah, that is really cool. They're two phasers. I'd like to hear that.
You can have them on different speeds and stuff like that, and as said, you can blend them in and out and that type of thing. So it really offers cool options that are not available, for example, on the original. So this is really an example of how I recreated the original circuit, which is a fantastic sounding circuit, and just made it in a way that it really gives it a completely different new dimension on top of it. I find it's my opinion on it, my market speak. No, that's why I love it.
Yeah, it's not. Yeah, I think I can tell that's not just sales talk, hey?
Yeah.
Hey, look, we've been talking for ages here.
Have we? Time flies.
Yeah. No, this is fascinating. I think what we'll do is sign off now. I think we might end up chatting about a few things.
Yeah.
It's been how do people get in touch with you?
Well, at the moment, most of all, probably over Facebook. I do hope to make a website in the future, but at the moment, Facebook, Big Noise Amplification. If you look on Facebook, Big Noise Amplification, you hopefully should find it. And my email, maybe you can post it when you post this with a video, is bignoiseamplification@live.com, bignoiseamplification@live.com. So write me an email, look me up on Facebook, there's photos and stuff, send me an inquiry, what you're after, and then I can tell you what I can do for you, and what I have on offer, or what we can tweak together, what I have on hand ready to ship, or what I can make you. And often when I make stuff, it can be somewhere between a week or 4 weeks. It depends a little bit if I have to order stuff in for it or something like that, you know. So it really depends how long it takes to custom make something. But then, of course, the customer also gets something really unique, which they don't get anywhere else.
Yeah, and they can have a picture of my dog on them.
Exactly, your dog. Probably not the death metal guys. They probably don't want something different on there, eh? But that's cool.
Hey, you haven't seen my dog.
Okay. I'll show you one that I did just the other day. This one is with the dog as well. I don't know if you can see that well enough. It's called Mad Dog.
Oh, yeah.
So maybe that's one of the heavy metal guys.
Yeah.
That's the one that has the nice bite. So it's really cool. It's also really nice to give them a bit of a nice look. You know, that's not the main selling point, but I have a bit of an artistic side to me in a way that I like to make things that are pleasing sound-wise, and where I also think, oh, this is beautifully made, and push it to the point where I think this is nice how I can make them, you know. Just with my amps, you know, I like to put them into beautiful cabinets, you know, type of thing. It would be fine in just a normal plywood case. It would probably sound the same, but I think it's really nice when I'm happy and proud with them. And the same for the stomp boxes. Why not decorate them a little bit? Make them look nice. Main thing is that they're built and sound well on the inside. Of course, that's a bit the key in the first place. But I think the overall care to what you do it's quite nice. I'm quite proud and like my gear to be pleasing for me. Hopefully to others too.
Yeah. Oh, fantastic.